Welcome back to another commentary video on the Brad Mouse channel, and today we're going to be discussing a very underrated beat-em-up style game, one that if you were around during the Xbox arcade game days, then I'm sure you'll recognise almost immediately, and judging by the title, obviously you'd recognise it. If not, though, today we're going to be discussing Charlie Murder. Now you might be asking, what is Charlie Murder? Charlie Murder is an action role-playing beat-em-up video game designed by Scar Studios and published by Microsoft Game Studios for the 360, and later was re-released for PC by Scar Studios themselves via Steam and whatnot. Now, what made this game stand out amongst other beat-em-ups is that it had RPG-like elements, and the music was pretty fucking bopping, let's be honest here. Not only that, the graphic style was pretty nice and unique. The characters were all cool, despite not saying a single word. The story wasn't too complicated, it was very easy to follow whilst also enjoying the gameplay and obviously having fun with it. And not only this, you had multiple classes slash characters to choose from to diversify your game experience. For example, Charlie himself is a berserker type, one that specialises in deal damage and, having moves and skills that are able to boost said damage. Whilst other classes can specialise in magic, such as the mage, and one can even specialise in lifting gigantic objects and taking damage, such as the tank. I could go into more detail, but I'd rather you experience this yourself and just enjoy the character yourself, see which ones you relate to the most in terms of a gameplay perspective. So why am I making a video on Charlie Murder and calling it the best beat 'em up game that you haven't played? Well, let's dive into the positives of why I think this. Charlie Murder is a beat 'em up, meaning the gameplay itself isn't that complex. However, if you take the time to really study and look at the character you're playing as, figuring out their moveset and upgrading when possible, then you'll have yourself a really fun and entertaining beat 'em up that can be enhanced with the RPG elements. Speaking of the RPG element in this game works through functions such as the clothing and also the charms that you get along the way, which are dropped by enemies and can even be found in cars and whatnot. Items in general are actually really fun, depending on what you destroy, such as police vehicles dropping guns and ambulances dropping medkits that heal your health up. It's actually really interesting to study what might drop this and what might drop that, combined with the weapon choices that you receive, such as nail guns, pipes and even lampposts in some cases. Charlie Murder's gameplay never ceases to keep you on your toes, and the difficulty will always ramp up whenever it has the chance, both during the fighting sequences, the boss fight sequences, and even the mini-game travel sequences that take you from one point in the map to the other. The gameplay of Charlie Murder overall is just it does a lot of favours to the genre, and it really sets a standard for combining two genres that you'd never think would work together in a really fun and positive way. Not many people really think of RPG meshed up with beat 'em up style games, but Charlie Murder does this in spades, and it's just very apparent by the way it plays. As mentioned earlier, the class system is also very fun, as when you pick a different class, it basically creates a brand new save file dedicated to said class. So if you wanted to, you could beat the entire game as Charlie Murder and then go back and play the whole game over again as a tank, see how far you get or see what abilities you missed out on. There's a lot of replayability factor when it comes to Charlie Murder, and it's obviously a really good part of the game. I almost forgot to mention there's also little music sequences, but I don't really think too highly of them, especially because on PC the inputs are kind of hidden amongst the crowd and the bright lights and shit. But the music is so good, it is fantastic. I recommend after this video go listen to the OST, it is really good. Now that I've discovered what's good about Charlie Murder, and there's probably a lot more, but I want to discuss the main positives of Charlie Murder. How about we discuss what holds Charlie Murder back and probably why not many people continued on to finish the game. For all the positives that Charlie Murder has to offer, I'm not gonna lie, nothing is perfect, and for Charlie Murder, there's quite a few negatives to go through. One of my first complaints about Charlie Murder is its really lackluster story. Granted that the story didn't really need to be anything special, but it just comes across as generic in my eyes. Childhood friend wants to get famous with, apartment friend Charlie Murder is a dick, runs off without him, gets famous on his own. Childhood friends get jealous, More shenanigans ensue where the childhood friend snaps and eventually becomes the Grim Reaper. I mean, aside from becoming the Grim Reaper and starting his own band of hell, I'd say the story's a little bit lackluster. But if you can get past the story, that's completely fine, but in my eyes I always found the story to be what held back Charlie Murder, at least a little bit. However, that's not the only issue with Charlie Murder. There are some instances, especially during the travel sequences, like all the minigames if you will, where there'll be instances where you can get soft-locked or trapped in an infinite combo loop and you'll just die because, you know, you have no way of escaping. There are a few examples of this, such as the bus sequence, which is like during the very first half of the game, where the bus's hitbox will sometimes be very raggedy and it'll be very hard to hit it. And if you try and ram into the bus, although the bus gets damaged, so do you, and in the instances when you have low health and you can't heal in said sequences, this can spell a problem. Another example is during the raft sequence where you're in the sewers. The final boss of this sequence is on a boat, throwing meat arms and such behind him, and you have to throw them back. That's what the game wants you to do. However, when you do and try and throw them back, sometimes it will hit, sometimes it won't. And if one of the arms hits you, there is a chance you'll get comboed into another arm. Obviously, there are a lot of annoying sequences, especially during the travel ones, but for the most part, they are fine. I just think these sequences really hold it back due to the jankiness, which is probably unintended, but at the same time, no matter what, it still holds the game back from being a very good game. And the last negative I'll cover here is some of the bosses are quite lackluster. That goes for some of the enemies as well. My main example of this being the Ghost Girl, the one that obviously is encountered through the Saw parody, which is pretty sick by the way, that they actually they managed to reference Saw, but I digress. The boss is like some giant ring-inspired woman who basically kills the Jigsaw bootleg, and her whole gimmick is that you can't see her, but she can see you and do a lot of damage to you. However, if you flail around like an idiot, you'll take this boss down no problem, and this boss has like a very short amount of health, so you'll pretty much decimate them by the time they get the chance to do anything. And this also applies to the mini version of this boss, the enemies, which although they can be annoying in swarms, the whole gimmick that you can't see them unless you know, hit them, it gets old after a bit, since, you know, you'll just be flailing around and hit them anyway no matter what. And with their small health bars, then yeah, it's just not much point to them. Also, the music sequences on PC, this is just a gripe. The buttons are so hard to see sometimes that when you do see them, you'll probably see it fly past the indicator. But I digress, this is just a pet peeve of mine. Let's move on to what you guys think of Charlie Murder and see how many people have heard this masterpiece. I did a poll the other day and I wanted to know how many people have heard of Charlie Murder. And out of the 24 people, an overwhelming 75% of people had never heard of Charlie Murder, which is astonishing to me. With the excuse being that people played the demo in the 360, but they never really got into it after that, which is completely understandable. Like, I can say this is the case with games such as Murder Miners and Castle Miners Z, games that started out with a decent lifespan on the Xbox 360 arcade market, but quickly fizzled out after the arcade market started to die down. However, like Charlie Murder, those two games, Murder Miners, which currently has a development as of right now, and Castle Miners Z has been released for Steam. Like, they've been given a second chance on Steam and people love it. However, not everyone was into the Xbox 360 arcade marketplace, as either they weren't interested in the arcade marketplace or they were on PlayStation. There's many reasons for it, but regardless, not a lot of people have heard of Charlie Murder, and this is honestly sad to me. Charlie Murder was a game thriving with potential, and it was well loved by people who played it. Hell, even my partner Choco was really vibing with the game when I introduced it to her, and she loved it. So by making this video, I can only hope that more and more people will become aware of the benefits that Charlie Murder has to offer, and maybe even check it out. It's on Steam right now. It's not even that much, I guarantee it. Without further ado though, let's move on to the conclusions, since not many people really knew about this game and thus had not really any thoughts to share on it. In conclusion, you should check out Charlie Murder. It is a really good game. Even if you don't like it, you can just easily get a refund, and hell, it's not even that much right now on Steam. The gameplay is fun, the music is a bop. There are so many good elements to Charlie Murder if you can get past some of the, you know, the less favourable elements of it. It honestly deserves more attention than it received, and let's be honest, it would be really cool if we could see a second Charlie Murder game come out, but that's a long shot, at least from a look at the developer's Twitter account. But I hope this video has convinced you that maybe giving Charlie Murder a shot is a good idea. If not, then I digress. At least I tried, you know? So, I really wanted to talk about this game. But yeah, if you did go on to enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you know we are almost at 200 subscribers. We are very close. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next video, mate. Take care, and goodbye.